Ben, aux Antilles, là, quand entrer la caille, là, quand retourner la caille, il y a carré sur positivement, il est content,
il là, on va parler créole, bah, yo.
Ça quand se prendre parce qu'on parle France et on parle créole, mais on parle français, bah yo.
D'accord. Mais on pas fait Martinique, on pas ouais, je Martinique. Non. Et ça pas qu'à se prendre on pas parler créole comme ça.
Si justement, parce que pour eux, on pour parler plus français que créole. Alors que quand on parle créole, il y a accent, pas vraiment un accent français. Donc ça quand se prendre quand on parle créole et puis pas vraiment parler. On pas vraiment parler français.
But what has been your most positive experience with Creole or the Creole language that you can remember?
Just being able to speak it, I think. Just feeling at home when I went to Dominica.
Listening to
knowing that I was born here and yet I had a common language that some of them couldn't even speak, and I felt more at home than some of the kids that were there because they weren't allowed to speak it.
For me, I'd say there was one time where what was that? I was in Paris and actually got lost on the metro. And I was with my dad actually, and he came to visit me when I was playing in France. And we was in Paris, got lost in the metro, and I was asking everyone. Obviously my French is not good, so I'm asking everyone in French. I'm attempting to speak French, no one really understands me. Everyone just rushing past me like, So luckily, I picked out this black guy. I'm thinking, you know what, maybe this guy is Guadeloupean, Martinique, or French guy, and I'm lucky today. So luckily, he was from Martinique. Started talking, and he directed me. Cause no one if he didn't help me, that was it. Cause my train was about to leave in like 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So if I'd have missed that train, I'd been done. So he came along, him and his wife, and even then, like me speaking to them, the smile on their face, they was like, they were so happy to help me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
They was like, yeah, we'll pass it là, we'll prend là, and then I was fine. You know what I'm saying? So I think like a few times I've met like Haitians in America and we spoke, you know, like taxi drivers in New Jersey or in Paris, and the person can't speak English but they speak Creole, so that's the bond, and it kind of lightens the mood, you know. You and them, it's this whole vibe. So
if I learnt Creole, I think I'd gain a sense of belonging, a better understanding. Just a place where I could, like, I feel like it'd be a place where I could call home for me, personally. Like, although I've been born and raised here, I don't know, I still feel like it's not mine. And I don't know if that's because of racism that in the past or so. But I don't know. But then I wouldn't feel at home if I was there in Dominica. So it's a weird feeling.
Like, okay, like when you're speaking with like the elders, like your grandmother or like older aunties or uncles, whatever, and because you know sometimes some Dominicans, I'm not sure about St. Lucian, I'm sure it's the same. But even though they know you can speak Creole, they won't speak to you in Creole because they basically don't trust your Creole. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll basically like they speak English because he might not understand everything I'm saying. But when they speak to you in Creole, and it's like a full-fledged conversation, that's when you know you've arrived. Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you made the Oscars. You know what I'm saying?
The gang.
You know what I'm saying? Like when they speak to you on the phone in Creole and it's no English, whereas before you might try open and say, come on, you're like, and they respond in English, and you're like, you know what I'm saying? And it's continue in English. Whereas,
like our early years, that's how me and this guy, we literally practice on each other, you know? Like real talk, we just speak one time.
But then, like, when you actually start speaking with them and they start responding back to you, it's kind of giving you that level of respect, like, okay, like, you know, they're fluent, you know, I can speak to them in Creole and trust that they know what's being said, and, you know, they're going to respond and the conversation's going to flow, and I think that, for me, that's probably the most vivid situations, really.
I could only recall, for example, in Haiti, when, you know, you're in Haiti and you have people struggling to speak to you, speak to you English so you could understand that, you know, because you're not from Haiti. They know that you're not from Haiti, so they're really making that big effort to speak to you in English and a lot of times they really can't. They're struggling through and stuff, and then you respond to them. You respond in Creole, and they're like, "Oh, kapali Creole," and they're so happy. And you've made a major breakthrough. That has been my only experience really, and most gratifying from both ends, for me and for them, So yeah, that's been my experience.
It always helped me, frankly. It's helped me by knowing the language and culture of my people, so that in school in Britain, it helped my confidence, because I always had a different frame of reference in my head. So people may be saying what they liked about me or what they thought about me, but in my head, mwete ni lot kachil, ou pete ni yon kachil kon mwen kon an kouyon, mais mwen même ka gade ou garçon, ek mwen ni lot bagaya sou tête mwen. You may be looking at me as a fool, but in my own head, I am plotting my own survival. Yeah? So it helped me generally in that way. Certainly when I went to Paris and the rest for the first time, or even before that. When I was about 17, I hitchhiked from London down to Morocco. And on the way there, I met some Martinican people, and they were basically very helpful and kind to me. So they invited me for meals. At times they invited me to stay with them. And through at least one of those friendships, nearly every single one of the 7 in my family know another family in Martinique where every one of the 7 found a friend of their own age group and helped each other in terms of learning English or French. So that wouldn't have happened without the Creole. So for me, it's an essential part of everything I did or perhaps even wanted to do.
A lot of things. I think the first thing is that I became more open to the other people speaking Creole from other Caribbean countries as well. It was beneficial to me as well because this is something I'm sure I can sell. If I want to go back to the Caribbean, this is a way to have as well a foot in the society. This is for example, in French Guyana and in Guadeloupe, in the French West Indies, when you speak Creole, you integrate yourself in the society. So it's very important. And the other thing I want to say is that it's beneficial for me to speak Creole because it's reinforced my identity and my proudness in being a Creole, in being Caribbean.
Grandmother was St. Lucian. She said her background, her grandparents were from French Guyana, but she had no history. She spoke no English, or if some was very, very little. She wrote and read French, so that was her. But she taught me so many things as a little girl when I met her. She taught me about Creole medicine. She showed me, ethics, what the young lady should do or not do. How you should speak, how you should carry yourself and so forth. She taught me a lot of the medicines, the Creole medicines that you can do instantly, and they were beneficial because people would come to her to ask her for things, but there she was not a doctor, she didn't, but she treated people, whether it was for during childbearing, after childbirth, children who were sick, for anemia. There's a whole history of things. And I never saw her sick till she fell ill and died in a week time. But she never said a word, she never anything. However, what I learned from her, I began to put it on paper, and I also questioned my father, who lived with the Bush Negroes in French Guyana, and I started documenting. But all the remedies have different names. For example, the leaves have different names in each country, in everywhere. So I had to take pictures of those leaves. So even though you could not understand the name of the leaf, at least you can make reference to the pictures and link them together. So I gathered all that, wanted to write a book about it. So I leave for the youth, even for my children. But I stopped halfway. My job did not allow me that time. I worked for Wyndham International, which is a wide world-known hotel company. And since I trained, I helped write the standard operating procedures as the director of human resources with them. I was one of the only black females working in that company. However, when they needed someone to come here to be with the staff or to train, whether it was the director of human resources or otherwise, we also had diversity training. And since I was so mixed within it, I was the only black Creole speaking director within the company. So I was sent here often to assist, and that allowed me to meet my family here. So it was a good thing for me and for them too.
Yes, when here, around the person that come from the continental France, and that if we want to say something to each other but we don't want other people to understand, I can say something to her in Creole and I will try to be like quick.
Yeah.
Like that I know that nobody will understand.
That's so true, because my boyfriend and I, when we don't know, we don't want other people to understand us. He spoke to me in Creole. He speak to me in Creole. Yeah.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
Because we can speak loud. It's not. We don't have to like speak loud.
No, so true.
Tips would you give them?
Well, since I learned French Creole, I can give my tips. It's important to speak with I would say the average person, and of course those definitions will differ. For example, I went and I was on the university campus. I may have heard it, but then that version that I heard wasn't the most authentic version. When we talk about the basilect, the mesolect, and the acolyte, that I would have been hearing the acolytal versions on the university campus. But when I was in the buses, that's when I heard Creole as the drivers and the different passengers interacted. I was at the bus stop, when I went to the market, when I just went walking in Fort-de-France. As you interact with the persons who are using it authentically, then you can just get the language naturally. Over time, without making the effort, I learned French Creole. So I don't think anybody knew that I understood, but I did. So when I was in a position to try out to see if I really could speak French Creole, I realized that I did. I just went to the market and I had already prepared my statement in my head. I'm going to ask the lady how much it is, combien ça va coûter? And I did the intonation, I used my English Creole, and I said, okay, I'm going to put that heart into it in the French Creole. And I went to the market, and of course, I guess I don't present as a non-French Creole speaking person. And I said, combien ça va coûter? And the lady replied, and I was ecstatic. I said, oh my gosh, I said something in Creole. So as you interact with the persons, the everyday persons, you sit in a family setting and they're speaking in Creole, that's how you're going to get that language.
Well, the best is just like a foreign language. The interaction with the locals is important. I mean, you go to the market, you listen to everyday conversation between people. Television, as I said, now you have programs, you have the news broadcasted in French Creole, and you know, I think you could learn that way, and you also read the ads, the newspapers. So, but interacting with persons make a difference.
And we can't rule out the actual official materials, because what I did, I actually got cassettes and a book, and I was reading the rules and saying, okay, you put this, and there's ka and k and pa and this and all of that, and it was all like very confusing. But as you have that language, the structures, and then you listen, then it makes sense. So it's also useful to get learning tools.
Donc ça sont belles questions, parce que ça sont questions moi-même tout, moi t'ai demandé tête moi l'aime t'ai commencé travail ça, parce que moi élevé c'est créole, moi t'ai tendé la caille moi, même pas passé toute vie c'est créole m'a parlé. C'est l'aime t'ai vinn plus grand vraiment commencer concentrer sur parler créole plus. Moi rencontré avec un pile monde qui sorti Haïti, qui sorti Saint-Lucie, qui sorti Guadeloupe, qui connaît que héritage c'est langue créole là, mais yo même yo pas parler peut-être pas yo. L'aime rencontrer avec moun sa yo toujours dit bien fois yo senti yo peur parler créole là, yo pas gen confiance de y parler, yo pas connait mot yo pas connait gen pile ti bagay qui fait yo pas à l'aise et puis pas connecté avec langue créole là. Mais ça me toujours encourager au faire c'est parler, apprendre, parce que c'est là où apprendre une langue ou vient plus connecté avec côté au sorti. Par exemple, qui me fait un petit camper sur langue créole haïtien. Là où on parle créole haïtien et puis yo rencontré avec un haïtien, gagne une connexion qui vient créer entre deux mondes immédiatement. Une connexion qui pas qu'à jamais casser parce que qu'on y a parler langue maman ça et puis ou même tout ou vient commencer à apprendre plus sur histoire famille, histoire pays et la trier. Et puis ça qui frappe moun les moins encourager au parler créole c'est que il y a des bagailles ça c'est ça qui est important. Il y a des questions ou commander et puis réponse ou adjoindre, c'est en créole seulement ou commander. C'est en créole seulement ou qu'a joindre réponse là. Qui veut dire gain pile information ou pas gain accès à information ça yo si ou pas parler langue créole là. Mais toujours dit moun juste commencer même si c'est 2 3 4 mots ou qu'on est en créole juste commencer parce que là on commencer marcher dans chemin ça ou juste continuer pour toute vie ou pas jamais suspendre ou pas jamais camper c'est là commencer à venir gonfler là qu'on est gonflé plein ou venir commencer à plein avec langue créole là et là ça ou venir à ouais puis clair mais m'a fait un petit camper là parce que sinon m'a juste continuer parler sans arrêter.
Learn something new every day, be it a word or a phrase. Use it. You can put little notes around, say like a bit like flashcards, big A4 sheets. Stick them with the words, what they mean. Use them.
I think, like you said before, I think once you're around it, you pick it up. And I think because from an early age, childhood age, that's when you pick up a lot of things. That's when you're learning is at its peak, really. Mm-hmm. So I was able to pick up things, and I think I've retained it quite a lot because I've been kind of around St. Lucian people who speak it a lot. I go to the Caribbean all the time, and again, I'm hearing it all the time. So you kind of tend to pick up things.
Even if the government is not taking its responsibilities of helping you move on to learning more about your language, culture and history, in this day and age with books, with internet, etc., do it yourself is what I'd say. Because initially the discussions, as I've told you, about Creole were next to nothing, both here and in the Caribbean. Through inputs by myself and other people like me, it's improved. The idea about black people and their place in history has been improved by people like Bernard Cord, people like Martin Luther King, etc. So you do what you can to help move things along. Martin Luther King, if he'd waited and said, well, okay, if white people give me permission to ask for liberty, then that is a good time. I don't see the point of asking for liberty. Or the lady on the bus who refused to give up her seat in America. If she had said, well, I will wait until the people say that it's a good thing for me to have equal rights to this bus, and then I'll make my move. So it's up to you. But my own kind of experience has been that if you want something of value, or you value something, you're better off trying to take the steps to improve on it yourself.
Write little notes to yourself, Write little notes to yourself. Try to write them in Kreyol. They won't be perfect at first, but you'll get better. Try to do that. And if pronunciation is an issue, if somebody thinks pronunciation is an issue, record themselves and play them back, play the recordings back. I know some people say to me, oh, I don't like the sound of my voice. When I've suggested this to people, they say, well, the first time you hear your voice, you're not really hearing what other people hear. Obviously, you're hearing it differently. So, you'll get over that. So some people have started doing that to help them pronounce things. So those are the tips I would use. And if there's a class or group taking place, discussion groups, join them.
I'd say go and speak to somebody who speaks Creole. The second thing I'd do is get hold of my book, Caribbean Language and History 1600 to about 1900. I would get hold of some other books, funnily enough, one written for tourists. There's a short book, a guidebook, saying an introduction to St. Lucian Patois by Toynbee. I'd say the book by the Dominican that you talked about, what's their name?
Sylvia Henderson Mitchell.
Sylvia Henderson Mitchell, that's another useful book. And then from the Folk Research Centre, St. Lucia, there is the orthography. It's called Kwéyòl, un bon cadeau, Kreyol, a good present. You can get that from the Folk Research Centre, Castries. Pay for postage if you're here. And the other thing would be the Kreyol English Dictionary, which you can buy, I'd imagine, from the St. Lucian government, because it's they who first brought it out. But also, for some reason, it's out on the internet. So if you just go on the internet, you'll find the whole dictionary there. So I think these are the materials. You've got somebody to speak to, and you've got the books to guide you. Then I'd say get some kind of Creole class organized, so that, as you say, you pay the teacher. So if I knew of a series of people who were interested and who were going to pay, I could organize to give the classes. Yeah? And I then think, after a number of people have learned or gained some competence, then they start teaching others, is the way I see it.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everybody. I wrote my first book, and it is an introduction to Kwéyòl ici. So my book will teach you not only how to speak, but write properly in Creole. You're gonna learn about what accents we have in Creole, when to use certain accents, the verbs, the tenses, personal pronouns, digraphs, vowels, hyphens and apostrophes. When should they be used? How do you know? In this book, it's going to teach you all of that. Also, you have the part of the book. We have the African influence on the book, Amerindian influence, which are the indigenous people. We have the Spanish and Portuguese influence on the language. There are numbers and the months of the years. We have the pop quizzes as well, so that you can actually test yourself to see how much you've already learned from the book. I also have the cultural notes part of it. Why we should be preserving the language, why you should know the language, why you should be proud to speak Kwéyòl, because it is something that you should be proud of speaking, and it is something that we should be passing on to the next generations, and so on. It is a trilingual book. You have things in English, Kwéyòl, and French. Thank you guys so much for all the support that I've gotten so far. I really appreciate you. And all I have to say is, don't hesitate to send me your feedback, leave me a review, and happy learning. Merci en shy.
Because communications is very important. And now if you are of St. Lucian descent and you want to, born in England, and you want to learn another language, I will tell you, learn the Creole language, which is the language of our foreparents. Okay? And to learn it, you just have to keep on liming the streets. And you will get the language within weeks.
I would say that there is a lot out there in terms of what has been documented if you want to study the grammar, the words. But I think it is important to listen to the language. And for example, I think on Dominica, DBS, they have a broadcast every day at around 2 o'clock, maybe a little bit after 2. They broadcast in Creole. So I have listened to that on occasion. There's a lot on the internet that you can listen to. I have gone back and listened to the speakers that I recorded and interviewed for my book, because I think that it really is important for history to have that. And I've also listened to them. I've learned a lot of words, expressions from them, particularly I think from that one speaker I told you who passed away just last year. So you can, I think it is possible to learn it if you really are interested. Certainly going to St. Lucia, spending time in places like St. Lucia, Dominica, Trinidad. I mean, you have parts of Trinidad where you have quite, clusters of speakers, so you still can learn it. So it's possible, it's certainly doable. I certainly think coming into it, knowing French helps, because it is a French-based language. So it helps you figure out a lot of things, a lot of words.
Pour ça aussi, j'ai mis sur YouTube, j'ai des contes créoles sur YouTube, les contes créoles de Benzo, vous allez trouver des contes créoles. J'ai mis aussi des vidéos pour apprendre à lire et écrire le créole. Hein? À l'aise pour parler créole. Vous tapez ça sur YouTube et il y a des vidéos pour apprendre à lire et écrire. Ouais.
I would recommend finding tools that you pretty much do things that you already do in the language that you currently speak. Do that as well with Haitian Creole. So for example, I love comedy. So I follow comedians on Instagram who are Haitian as well, and they do comedy sketch that are in Haitian Creole. An OG that I watched back in the day and to this day, because my parents introduced me to him. In the same way I watched Oliver Samuels when I was watching, comedy for Jamaican patois. I watched Jessie Foy. So that's the comedian that I know, who is the Oliver Samuels for Haitian Creole. And so it's little things like that. I love music, so I listen to music in Haitian Creole. Right now, Spotify has a pretty cool tool that people can see lyrics of the song sometimes. So if I'm listening, I can see the words and kind of jot down, if this is a new word I've never heard before, jot it down and try and figure out later on what it means. So yeah, just find things that you like already to do and do that in Haitian Creole. Another great thing is you got to just practice. So being around people who speak it, it kind of forces you to practice, because if you don't practice, you're not exercising your memory muscles that way to actually do it. So.
Ouais, gon écrivain qui est le Khaled Hosseini. Non livre in the Mountain Echoed, li écrit que if language was a house, if culture was a house, then language would be the key that opens all the doors inside that house. M'a dit lan Kreyòl pou nou. Si culture te yon kay, then langue lan tap clé qui ouvre toute porte nan kay la. Et c'est ça langue Kreyòl la yé pou nou. Vous comprenez? Donc c'est un moyen de communication. C'est ça qui et langue ça maman nous parler. Bon, si langue ça te if it was good pour libérer nous dans esclavage, oui ça pas bon enough pour éduquer nous. Vous comprenez? That's what I'm saying.
Oui, pour mon qui chercher apprendre créole, qui pas une chance prendre une classe avec nous, moi toujours encourager au checker réseaux sociaux. Honnêtement, ça sont belle façon pour connecter avec langue créole là. J'aimerais t'avoir expliqué avant, les tout bagage sur internet là t'es commencé, les haïtiens viennent laguer tête yo la donne, c'est créole yo utilisé pour et communiquer sur les réseaux sociaux, sur internet là, il y a un pile blog qui écrit en créole, ou joindre par exemple un pile page sur Instagram qui écrit en créole, et puis tout il y a un pile l'autre côté sur internet là, côté ou joindre haïtien qui partager toute qualité bagage en créole. Qui veut dire premier bagage pour faire c'est venir prendre un cours avec nous dans institut dans jardin Simon, mais en même fois si ou pas grand chance pour faire ça, juste aller sur internet là, les charger à espace côté moun a partager bagay en créole que qu'a utiliser pour apprendre tête ou langue créole là.
Follow people on Instagram, you know, Kwéyòl set ici, Kofi Show, Karis Maggie, Holistic Kreyol, Kreyol for Kids. There are so many people, and once you just tap into one, like they'll all come flooding in, and we tend to like repost each other. Two saints, not me forgetting ourselves.
L'autre façon d'adi qui est important, c'est pour entendre musique. Pour entendre musique, pour entendre des paroles dans la musique, et puis qu'on y a même sur internet ou abjen mon parole chanter. Qui donc d'adi musique c'est une belle façon pour apprendre langue et puis pour ba ou chance tande langue dans la musique là. On connaît sur Spotify avec l'autre côté ou cap joindre musique pour tendre en créole et c'est tout. Merci.
Create a playlist with musicians from all around the Caribbean. And have that playing. Music is a way to connect us to langage, to language, and to self, and you know, rhythm. You know, gets us moving. We are rhythmic people. We are people of movement, and so that really does help your language acquisition.
So that leads me to, so if you're trying to learn Creole or Patois, you should be really speaking to an older speaker. Is that what you think?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to cook, who are you going to go to? If you know, this whole idea, it's only recently that I found out that the cook on the cooker was to time food. I thought it was just the clock on the cooker because my mum never used it. And it's a bit like the recipes and the piece of this, you know, we squeeze some of this and half of this and a little bit. So they know, but they didn't know how important it was, I don't think, that we know.
So my parents did a couple of things to help me learn the language. So the first one was from when I was a baby, I could say they simultaneously use Haitian Creole with English, you know, little commands, come here, sit down, be quiet. You know, I knew those words in Creole as well as in English. The second thing was they took me to Haiti, like, I think it was every 5 years. So being around relatives, learning how to greet people, because we were always visited by people in the community and a lot of them were like elders. So knowing how to respectfully, like, you know, greet people, Speaking to my cousins, I also felt left out of conversations, and so wanting to be curious, it kind of forced me that if they said something, if my mom or my dad was nearby, I would be like, what did they say? And then she would tell me, and just picking up words here and there. And then I kind of learned how to like structure sentences that way. Playing games. They taught me how to play games in Haitian Creole when I was visiting my family. I believe that my parents were onto something. I don't even know if they realized, but they literally were setting me up to kind of survive in a different way. Because here's the thing too, we were living in Jamaica at the time, right? So I felt like kind of teaching me Haitian Creole as well. However they did it, it helped me that if I was in situations that was uncomfortable and I'm with them and we kind of want to get out of the situation, we had our own little code language. So we're like talking about things that we're seeing. Nobody understands what we're saying. Like there's some power in that as well, that no one else knows what you're saying, and you have that comfort to like actually express how you're feeling in that moment. So yeah.
I'd say bug your grandparents. If there are like older people in your family who still speak the language, like even if it feels like it's too late, still try to, have those connections and, ask them, how do I say this? How do I say that? And then, at least having some bits of the language may help you and your self-confidence if you can't maybe do classes at the moment.
You see nursery rhymes, right?
Okay.
In Creole. Do you see there's any importance for those?
Well, they exist in Creole, nursery rhymes, but I find them negative, so I've created my own because I just saw the problem when I started to have children. Most of the nursery rhymes, you have like I don't know, there's one that's talking. Well, there are several. I don't know this one, but there was one that was very sad, and I think it's very old. Basically, it's telling you, hush baby, okay. Basically, if you ask me for my milk doesn't belong to you. I can only give you a substitute. Mommy's alone with you, daddy left. And I just need to rock you and just hush baby, don't cry. There's Kassav who took that song. They took it a bit. And I found that so depressing. And I think it makes sense because the nursery rhymes, especially the old ones, they're always talking about the devil will take you if you don't speak, if you don't hush, devil will come and take you. And I found that a bit, I like them, I know them. My granny used to sing them to me, and I know she only had love for me. But growing up, when I analyzed the songs, I was like, well, I'm not going to sing that to my children. So I totally composed and wrote different nursery rhyme. But whenever they sleep, the prayers are in Creole and the nursery rhymes are in Creole because they need to feel like this is what connects us to the emotion. That is the realm of the emotion, the divine, and our glue, our familial glue is in Creole anyway in this house. So this is just me.
My grandma kind of incorrectly states, well, I tried to teach you all, but you didn't want to learn. And I was like, the lies that people tell about child psychology when it comes to Kreyol are remarkable. But that's not how children learn. I learned to speak English because it's the only language I was around. In the same way that every child learns to speak a language because it's the only language you're around. So if you do that to a child and you just give them a book and be like, you can learn that language if you want, there you go.
No, they need to help them with it. You can't just give a book and say get on with it.
It's not going to work because you have to practice as well. You have to have the familial aspect as well, and hear your grandparents saying certain things. So my grandma always has a little Kwéyòl interjection, so she's always like, pa, ma, bon, ton. Like,
and the odd proverb here and there.
So it helps. It helps.
Absolutely. So how do you feel when you see other communities' children speaking and our children are kind of struggling?
I'm happy for those other communities. I taught one of my young students in a school in Walthamstow, and what he said to me, I asked him, he was a Chinese pupil of Chinese origin, so we were talking about what do you do after school, and then he said to me, Chinese school, sir. then I said to him, what do you do on weekends? Chinese school, sir. And then I said to him, what do you do on a Sunday? Chinese school, sir. So you've got a group of people who had the supplementary school system just as we did, and they agree on their own development. So I'm happy for them in that they respect themselves and they set up a system whereby, while participating and getting the best out of this system, they are also evolving their own system. And all of those, for instance, who in the past may have thought, oh, China is in a backward place, etc., and may have even abandoned Chinese. They would have been in the minority, but some may have been thinking, this is not important now. We'll wait till things get better. By that stage, they will have lost their Chinese, and the children who speak fluent Chinese are currently now back in China, getting big jobs, etc., because they've got knowledge of the West, particularly if they've got a degree, they've maintained their Chinese culture, and they see opportunities for them.
The main gist of what I'm trying to say is, what would you tell those grandparents and parents who think it's useless to pass down the language?
What I'd say to people who don't think Kreyòl is useful, in particular people who, for almost lack of a better word, when they were educated, were brainwashed into thinking that their culture, their language, their identity had no real validity, and the one that you had to assume was English, and literally you had to speak the Queen's English, and people really pushed that. What I would say, when people think that Kreyòl is useless, I would just say, think about how much of a shame it is, and how problematic it is that I am probably the best English speaker in my family, because I'm quite an academic person, and I also work in law, so I have to use English all the time, and it has to be formal English. But if I had to have a discussion with someone or an argument on, say, Britain leaving the European Union in Kreyòl, I would struggle. I can't actually do it. And I remember having that in a group chat with some people who spoke Kreyòl from different islands, and we were talking about it. And I could understand bits of the conversation, but I couldn't fully engage. And it's just, I want to say to people who don't think that the language is useful, that you're actually, for lack of a better term, you're kind of doing the colonizers' work for them. So what you're doing is you are continuing the legacy that people who conquered Dominica and did so much damage to our ancestors and our ancestral homes and links, you're continuing that by saying that your language is useless. Well, effectively what you're saying is the language that your ancestors created out of a period which was awful for them, they managed to recreate and refashion a whole world, and you're telling me that that newly fashioned world, which has some European influences, but at its core is fully African, you're saying that that is useless. And that for me is heartbreaking. And I think a lot of grandparents don't think like that. Because they grew up in Dominica, to them it's just the language. In particular how my grandparents talk, it's just Ibrocan French. That's how they say it. It's just the thing. That's what it is. They don't really, I wouldn't say they don't take pride in it, but for them, their connection to the language is different. And I would just say that you're detaching your children and your grandchildren, and effectively your great-grandchildren, later down the line, from their ancestral roots. And when you do that, you can't fix the damage. And I wish people would think about that, because they don't think about that. And I think if you thought about that, how it's actually disconnecting your children from you and from their ancestry and where they come from, you might think a bit differently about it, and you realise the damage you're actually doing.
Le mwen te ka leve ti mamay, mwen apon Kreyòl mwen apon Kreyòl bien jen. Paske gwa maman mwen se jen Kayen. I pa pale un mot anglais jis atan yi mort. A 97 l'année. J'ai gâté moi, m'a jamais entendu parler un mot créole. So nous comme my teach nous t'es pour apprendre créole bien jeune pour nous ça parler avec lui pour nous ça communiquer puis et ça mon only want c'est qu'à dire maman nous pour tu quitter ces maman là parler créole autant petit ça kaya empêcher ou apprendre tout bagaille comme ça mais ma quoi ça empêche personne apprendre because nous tout apprendre nous tout faire l'école nous tout apprendre nous tout capable parler bien anglais bien créole so ça pas jamais un problème.
No, it's like saying, well, I'm a parent, I'd love my children to learn French, it interferes with English. I'd love my children to learn Arabic, it interferes with English. Delusional. If you speak the language, then do what I did, which is just speak it to the child in the early years, and that will make some kind of progress.
What if my child's 14 though?
If your child's 14 and you're able to get a place where they teach them that particular language, you go there. That's got nothing to do with English. Like saying, I wanted my children to learn ballet, so I sent them to ballet lessons. Hey, that's going to interfere with English. It's delusional activity that we seem to be indulging in.
Well, moni yon selish, ini 3 ans. Et moi ka kite apprendre créole, nous ka parler créole la kay nous, gomme moi ka parler créole, nous tout ka parler créole la kay la. Ça pas seule langue nous ka parler anglais aussi. Mais nous ka kite apprendre et ça nous ouais c'est il ka masser créole là, pas quoi nous pas nous assise avec mucho bagay. Ou ka ouais ka venir ka parler ba nous ka commencer de nous parole là et il ka wait like il ka catchile. Mais il ka met mot anglais en dit dans créole là. So ça nous a fait c'est nous a dit mot créole là so les vieux di bagay là il a dit bagay là bien parce qu'il a dit avec mot créole là en dit dedans so qu'on hay ka apprendre c'est même manière moi apprendre maman nous pas jamais mais nous assise et dit nous well c'est ça nous apprendre pas qu'à écouter c'est que mon a parler et you ka parler ba nous et nous ka répondre yo et ça nous marcher you ka moucher nous et c'est comme ça nous apprendre et moi c'est un bon bagay. C'est une bonne manière pour apprendre. Un cas c'est une bonne manière pour apprendre because plus ou fait bagay là c'est plus apprendre plus.
Thank you. Now you know that you can learn that at university, Learn Creole at university in Martinique, right? And Guadeloupe and so. But before, they would consider that if they had considered the two as languages, separate languages, you wouldn't make mistake. Maybe once in a while, because when you learn in Spanish and Italian and Portuguese, you might certainly mix the 3 of them because they're not too far one from the other, But if you learn in each properly, you don't mix.
Was your accent okay? Because I find some people sometimes, you speak it and you say the words correctly, but it's the accent that puts people off.
Yeah.
Natives, and they might think, oh man, your words are fine, but your accent's too British or too
yeah,
American or
they
too
do. And I think for me, because I go back so much, sometimes the accent's the same. But I've heard it sometimes when British solutions or solution British, they go over there. You kind of hear that some of the words they say is just doesn't sound quite right. And you could say, okay, you're not really from here, are you? You're from somewhere else.
That's what kind of puts me off speaking, because I know my accent, it doesn't work to me I'd have to change the accent, and then I feel like I'm being a bit plastic, if you know what I mean.
No, I think you should. I think if you're there for a bit longer.
Yeah, like I say, after 2-3 weeks, you just kind of feel okay. But if I was here and somebody was speaking to me, I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah.
So yes, I have experienced, issues with my accent being picked apart whenever I speak Haitian Creole, especially when you're around more native Haitian speaking individuals. They have a thing where they will call you like Tiblan, because your accent sounds a bit like a white person trying to speak Haitian Creole. And honestly, I'm fine with it because it's not my native language. even though I have that cultural background, it's not where I was able to spend most of my life to naturally speak that way. And so I just want people to understand that by doing that, you also kind of have some people feel like they shouldn't learn the language. There's some insecurity around it. There's a reason some people might not want to speak a language because they're criticized when they actually do try to speak. So if you are someone like me that you don't care, you'll just go ahead and do your thing regardless. I try from time to time that there are certain words that I will try my best to get the accent as much as possible, but I know that it won't be 100% there all the time, but it's also with practice. Creole is about a tonal, kind of vibe as well with it. There are certain things that we would say in Creole that we don't necessarily say in English in the same tone or vibe. And I think that's what it's really about. But I have no problems with being criticized. At this point, I'm like, it's whatever. I'm doing my best. That's all I can do.
But you have to get past that. You have to get, and the interesting thing about it is once you continue to speak the language, you start adopting what I call the spirit of the language. Because Creole is not just words. It's not just words that you throw out to explain yourself. It's an experience. And it might be difficult for someone who's not a Creole speaker to understand what I'm saying, but it's an experience. You feel the language. It's a tangible language. So if, for example, I say to you, oh, Daryl, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind because I'm upset with you, right? You hear how that sounds generic? But if I say, Daryl, moka ale bao or je me puis, you hear the difference? So you feel like you embody the language.
Listen, everybody is going to have an accent when they speak a language. Don't care about what somebody has to say about, oh, but you're speaking that with a kind of accent and blah, 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 blah. Point is you are speaking. Point is you are preserving, you are archiving, you are in the moment of expression. So don't try and tell yourself, oh, I'm not good as yet, so I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. Speak as much as possible. And in time, your accent will improve. Or if it doesn't, it's fine. Why? Because we all have accents. And that's more than okay.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, it's the same thing when an English person starts to speak in French. So you will always have stupid people laughing at them. This is what I have to say about it. If you want to learn a language, no one would have the strength to stop you. You want to learn? Learn. If people want to laugh, they're stupid. Let them laugh. Maybe they don't have nothing else to laugh at. So maybe so you give them some kind of happy moment. So laugh with them, but learn it. Don't stop. If they stop you from what you want, they can stop you for anything you want.
On ne m'a jamais dit ça. C'est vrai que le fait que nous n'ayons pas l'accent, étant natif de métropole, on n'a pas l'accent pour parler créole, donc parfois ça peut être sujet à certaines moqueries. Maintenant, je pense que c'est un peu intégré dans les mœurs. Maintenant, on parle créole avec n'importe quel accent, je pense.
Say what you have to say, as you know how to say it. If you make an error, somebody will correct you. But you will not learn the language if you don't speak it, if you don't try it out and stuff.
Another good thing was while I was living in Jamaica, I technically was doing ESL before ESL was a thing. So there was a point in time when we were surrounded by a lot of other Haitian folks that were there for going to the school for pastors and stuff like that. And them coming directly from Haiti, not knowing any English, I kind of took it upon myself. It was me and my little brother just having conversations with them during summer because we were bored. We didn't really do anything during summer. Summer school was over, all the activities. So it was during that time we would just have conversations with them. So teaching them English by kind of knowing some Haitian words, that also helped a great deal as well. So yeah.
What has been the impact from the community? How have they felt about it? So
yes,
the people that have been joining up, sorry.
Yes, I've received a lot of wonderful support, not just from the people who come on the program, but the Dominica community in general, because there is a committee in Dominica called the CEC, Committee pour Études Créole. So it's pretty much the committee to educate folks in Dominica Creole. I was able to become a member of that organization, and they realized what their missing link was, because here they were doing all this work in the background, taking Creole to the schools, having Creole Day, having Creole festivals, but the missing elements that they had not realized was the importance of the internet, the importance of social media. So now what we've been able to do is kind of collaborate so that they're able to use my interviews, my programs to put on their Facebook page to show the actual effort of what the community is doing.
So both studying the language and speaking it was important to me, because I was at the point where I felt like I could speak enough to help myself, but I felt like I was missing out in other areas like reading and actually writing it. So I made a recent video on my channel where I said, while speaking to like my cousins or just relatives on a whole, I would not dare send a text. It was always voice notes. But I'm at a point right now where I'm confident enough to actually write sentences. And it just kind of helped, because now I'm trying to read more like literature and just things like that in Haitian Creole. So it helps that by doing those little activities and the other resources that I've used to help me understanding the sentence structure, it has helped even with my speaking, how I properly pronounce words. Because I think I was pronouncing words and speaking Haitian Creole by mimicking what I was hearing, which is completely different when you actually are enunciating properly because you know what the words are. So that's a difference I can see with me a year ago compared to now.
Well, how old were you when you learned Creole, and how did you learn it? Simple.
Fluently. I was confident and fluent by 18, 19. That's when I was most confident and most fluent in Creole. My life then was a bit different compared to how my life was now. Like that's how me and him met. My life then was about basketball. I wasn't even involved with the Lucian crowd and the Martinique crowd and all of that, like how I am now, you understand? So yeah, my background was basketball, so that's the age I believe I'm more fluent in Creole.
I think mine was a bit later than him. Fluent. Probably early 20s, but I think I started, I was about 16, actually. You know what it is there? It's like, when you already have a basis with something, to pick it up is you know what I'm saying? And when you love something, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really like a studying thing, it's just something that, it's a natural evolution, you know what I'm saying? But for me, it was, I have to think, there was a teacher when I was in America. I'm not sure if I told you the story, but he was Haitian or whatever. And it was my first day at high school, and he came to me, he was like, oh, where are you from? I was like, oh, I'm from the UK. He's like, oh. He said, no, where are you really from? I was like, oh, my mom's Irish, my dad's Dominican, whatever. And the moment I said Dominican, he started speaking to me in the Haitian Creole. And he just caught me off guard. I'm like, ah. So like, he kind of chastised me. He said, you're Dominican, you can't speak Creole. This is you know, like them old fashioned.
Old man.
Old man still. And like, I went away, I was like, oh, this guy stuck it on me, you know what I'm saying? I was like, nah, I gotta learn my language, man.
Yeah, man.
So I kept asking him to teach me, and then every now and then we would link up and he would show me the alphabet, the writing system, and but this is the Haitian one though.
Yeah.
But so now when I come back in the summer, I'm just firing stuff at my dad, at my family members, grand, and they're like, rah, like, you know what I'm saying? But then obviously, like, they start seeing the interest, and they start speaking to me, and more. Obviously, they'll speak to me, I'll respond in English, and you know, over time, you just pick up the confidence, and it's a natural thing, really.
Yeah, man. Big up Haiti, same time.
Yeah, trust me.
Big up Haiti, same speed.
You know what it is, yeah? You see, when you, like, if I had a choice to speak Creole all day, I would do it.
Yeah.
You can even ask my girlfriend, I'm speaking, like, she understands a lot, you know what I'm saying? I speak to her full-fledged Creole, you know what I'm saying? But I think, obviously, like Romel was saying, it's a thing where you live it, you know what I'm saying? Like, for us, it's like, it's a constant music. For me, music was a was a big part of even learning the whole language. You know what I'm saying, and I'm always listening to zouk, cadence, compa. You know what I'm saying, all these different genres of music. I'm always listening to them, so it's always being reinforced in my mind. You know what I'm saying, and then I actually dream in Kreyol. I have dreams in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
that's real talking now.
I've had
yeah,
dreams,
man, before
like,
I could even speak Kreyol, I'm dreaming I'm speaking Kreyol.
You know what I'm saying? So,
understanding myself and all. Yeah, that's
so,
real talk. That is real talk. That is dead real talk.
Yeah, like, so it's a...
So I had to swear like, yeah, bro. I'm thinking about that now. Like,
I'm speaking to my son in Kreyol also. So it's a constant thing, you know? So...
Yeah, man, that is real talk. Yo, you freaked me out there, you know. I just realized that's real talk. I never tell nobody that, you know, bro.
In 2024, I don't think we can still stand on the argument that if you learn Creole, it will interfere with your English and vice versa. I think there's more than enough evidence, even in the region itself. If you look at countries like Aruba, Curacao and Bonaire, primarily Aruba and Curacao, they speak English, they speak Dutch, they speak Papiamento, some speak Spanish, some speak French. I even met a few Arubans the other day and they were very adamant that most people speak 5. So what leg have we got to stand on with this? I think this is pretty much self-hatred at this point. And as a result of this, children are missing out on a lot, and adults, those children eventually become adults and they miss out on a lot. And another example is because of the Ukraine war. At the beginning of the Ukraine war, a journalist by the name of Philip Crawford came to many people's attention. He's from Luxembourg and he was born to a British parent and a German parent. And they both taught him English and German, and also he learnt Luxembourgish at school. But he had done multiple broadcasts in English, German, French, Portuguese, Spanish.
Mir noch nicht genug Zeit zu erklären, für was dieser kleine amerikanische Staat den ersten ist an dieser langen Liste von 4 Wahlen. Den US-Staat Iowa ist relativ repräsentativ, aber für die républicaine Partei. L'ancien président est le favori ici, ainsi que dans les autres États qui voteront dans les prochains mois, et le grand favori aussi pour être à nouveau le candidat du Parti républicain en 2024. Los únicos 3 apellidos que cuentan en esta carrera republicana para ser el candidato en 2024. Trump, DeSantis e Haley. Assim, as campanhas preparam-se para concurso com baixa participação, que testará verdadeiramente a força do apoio dos candidatos. Donald Trump's win in the Iowa caucuses confirms his control over the Republican Party and sends a resounding message that the party's 2024 presidential nomination is likely to be his. Die meisten Experten glauben, dass dieser Sieg in Iowa der Beginn einer triumphalen Reise für Trump ist. Kein Prozess kann ihm im Weg stehen, so denken sie, und das stimmt in gewisser Weise auch.
He's very competent. What's stopping us from being competent like that? What's stopping the children who have the greatest chance of acquiring multilingualism or bilingualism in the best form?
Verstehen Sie Kopf, ja? Gut. Kopf, and here I'll draw a picture now. Kopf. Ist gut, ja? Schön. Kopf. Das ist Mr. Spock, ja? Mr. Spock hat 2 Ohren. Ohren. Verstehen Sie Ohren? Er hat 2 Ohren. Okay, Mr. Spock. Ja? Ach nein, Entschuldigung. Okay. Augen. Verstehen Sie Augen? Augen. Wie viele Augen? 1, 2, 3 Augen. 3 Augen. Is that
I stressed at the beginning, I'm a monolingual speaker of English. However, listening to others who have learned one language or multiple languages and languages from all over the world, there is a common theme that keeps coming up called comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is being promoted by language learners on YouTube. This is when people read and watch something to learn the language, starting off with videos that you can understand. As you begin to understand simple terms in the videos and understand the language a bit more, you increase the difficulty by watching something that's slightly just a little bit more difficult as you go along. Unfortunately for Creole languages, there isn't much comprehensible input out there. There are a few pieces that could be helpful or are in close proximity to comprehensible input. However, there are some examples of comprehensible input which may be able to help. For St. Lucian Creole, there are channels like Bonjour St. Lucie, or aka In Time Education Television, which has some basics and gradually gets harder.
Naili, écoutez. Côté enfance, il y a bas table là. Côté alcoolique là, il y a 20 points là. Côté neta, il y a boutique là. Côté week, il y a wokai là. You're saying côté enfance?
There's also Che Capesh, which you can watch their theatre productions and gradually understand some of the terms. For countries like Martinique and Guadeloupe, I know on their national radio stations, La Première Martinique and La Première Guadeloupe have dedicated shows on Creole at particular times. Not forgetting you have Experience Creole on Dominican radio as well, which has been shown in this documentary.
Just listen to what Hot FM is playing right now. And they've been on this vibe for the last hour.
In terms of regular reading, would people benefit from the return of newspapers like Balata? Maybe in physical and digital form. This could be used not only as a teaching tool, but as an informative tool of current events, current affairs, and cultural history. When you look at these old copies of Balata, you can see local news, proverbs, and promotion of local events. I think people would enjoy this material, whether in online form or physical form. Furthermore, studies show that a newspaper could be beneficial for learners because reading is a part of comprehensible input. In addition, if they are encouraged to produce articles, this could help them learn sentence structure and new vocabulary. I've always been interested in languages, even though I'm a monolingual speaker. But one of the things that surprised me as a 10-year-old is when I went to the Netherlands to play in a football tournament. And I'll never forget standing on the other side of this table, and the Dutch children were looking at us and we were looking back at them. And eventually one of them spoke English, which was like, rah, like you guys can actually speak English. And that always reminds me of how competent the Dutch are at speaking English. And I always remember that they actually have access to BBC channels. They actually get a lot of subtitling on their channels. They access English content, and most of the Dutch say it's because of business and trade, because the Dutch, they were never an English colony. It's just as a result that they've made a systematic or programmed effort to actually learn English. So I do think to myself, if Grenadians and other Caribbean islands had subtitled Creole content from other islands, whether it be Haiti or Guadeloupe, Martinique, and St. Lucia to a degree, because they do productions in St. Lucian Creole on the government YouTube website, would that benefit Grenadians and other Caribbean islands to learn the language? And I do think to myself, yeah, okay, it wouldn't be the original Grenadian Creole that Grenadians lost, but it will be better than nothing. There's nothing wrong with actually acquiring a language or another language that way. So would it unify us, and would it allow and help people to access learning Creole in Grenada and other islands?